Thanksgiving, a Minnesota World War II veteran does not take anything for granted.
Joe Kovar was awarded the Purple Heart after surviving Battle of the Bulge, one of the bloodiest battles in U.S. history.
I've got 18 medals, but I don't consider myself a hero because the heroes are all buried over there.
For decades, Joe Kovar kept his war stories buried deep inside, not even telling his wife or kids, until he saw what could happen if he started talking. This morning, he shares his story in hopes of helping other veterans here at home. For most of us, World War II can only be imagined through clips of grainy black and white film. But 91-year-old Joe Kovar still sees the war clearly in his mind.
I saw everything there is to see in combat.
Kovar arrived in France in 1944. As a 19-year-old kid from Anoka, the details from that first attack are impossible to forget.
The shells started, and they come boom, 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 bang, boom, and they're hitting. And when they hit, they could blow a house like this up. It's very scary, that first shelling.
In another ambush, the Germans nearly wiped out his unit.
We had a shelling for about an hour that went on there, and it took 57 of my comrades out. One poor guy down in the hole, he was butchered wide open. He was a dead man, didn't know it. And he said, "Kovar, for God's sake, please shoot me." Could you have? I couldn't either. He died a few minutes later, but that's the way war was.
If war could get worse, Kovar's unit was underprepared for Battle of the Bulge's infamous cold, wintry weather.
The weather and conditions were worse than the Germans. We had no earmuffs, gloves, or heavy socks, anything like that. We were in our summer clothes yet.
The attacks continued into the spring when Kovar faced what eventually earned him the Purple Heart. By his side that day, a young comrade named Murphy.
And he was so scared that he was hanging on my arm like a little kid, like this. He was so scared.
The shooting began and Kovar was hit.
I caught a piece of shrapnel in my arm. It cut all the nerves, and my arm was dead. But I looked over at Murphy, and he wasn't as lucky. He was dead. He caught shrapnel that killed him.
Kovar survived the war when many did not. For him, there's only one explanation.
I was so protected by angels over there.
And for all the horror he witnessed, there's one memory that brings him tears of joy. On board a ship, heading home.
New Year's Eve, we saw the blessed lights of Virginia Beach. And you can't believe the feeling. The feeling, we were home, home, home.
Now, it's hard to believe that Kovar never shared any of those stories up until about 6 years ago when someone offered to pay him to speak to their group. He started charging $300 per speech, gives several a week, and he gives every cent that he earns back to veterans programs right here in Minnesota. To date, he says that he's raised more than $40,000, if you can believe that. Joe's wife, Agnes, also known as Sis, helps him with all those events. They married in 1948. They have 4 children, 12 grandchildren, and 15 great-grandchildren. One of his sons is also a Purple Heart. He was shot down while he was in Vietnam.
Wow.
So quite a family.
What a legacy of leadership on his part, and being able to share that message. So many groups.
So
really,
important.
really awesome.